Hello everyone, I am Dr. Shantakumari K. from Department of Mathematics, AJIET, Mangaluru. In our previous video sessions, we already studied Module 4, that is Statistical Methods and Curve Fitting. Okay. Now let us start Module 3, that is Probability Distributions. Now before going to actual syllabus probability distribution, let us review some of the basic probability theory which you have already studied, but some of the terms we are using again. So you need to have the idea about all these terms which we are going to use. So what is a random experiment? You know you are performing experiments in labs, different types of experiments, but what is called as a random experiment? In an experiment, if you are not sure about the outcome, that means we cannot predict the outcome precisely, that type of experiments are called as random experiments. So here I have given an experiment is a random experiment if its outcome cannot be predicted precisely. One out of a number of outcomes is possible in a random experiment. A single performance of the random experiment is called as a trial. So for example, when you toss a coin, it is actually a random experiment. You cannot predict the outcome precisely, whether you are going to get head or tail. So it is a random experiment. When you are tossing a coin once, it is called as a trial. A single performance of the random experiment is called a trial. And what is outcome of a random experiment? Outcome means it is a possible result of a random experiment. For example, same example I am giving you. When you toss a coin once, getting head is an outcome, H, head, or getting a tail is another outcome. Okay, and sample space means it contains all possible outcomes. The sample space S is the collection of all possible outcomes of a random experiment. So in the example of tossing a coin once, sample space S equal to set containing H, T. H means head, T means tail. So sample space for the experiment of tossing a coin once, it is H, T, set containing H, T. The elements of the sample space are called as sample points. Okay. A sample space is discrete if it is finite or countably infinite set, and an uncountable sample space is called as a continuous sample space. Okay, so remember all these terms: random experiment, outcome, sample space, sample points, etc. Now what is meant by an event? An event is actually a subset of the sample space. That means it is a subset of all possible outcomes for a given random experiment. And usually we use the notation capital letters A, B, C, etc. to denote the events. But if you denote an event as yes, actually it is nothing but the sample space itself. It is called as certain event, sure to occur, certain event. And if you denote an event as phi, it is called as impossible event. Phi means null set. It does not contain any elements. So if you are having a sample space with n elements, there are 2 raised to n possible events. So every subset of a sample space is an event. So for any set containing n elements, there are 2 raised to n subsets. So you have 2 raised to n events possible. Out of those 2 raised to n events, one is yes, certain event, and another one is phi. And remaining are proper subsets of your sample space. I am just giving you some example here to understand this concept of event. If you consider tossing a fair coin, the possible outcomes are H and T, head and tail. So what is the sample space? Yes, it is containing set H and T, set of all H and T. It is a finite sample space. The events associated with this sample of space S are: one is S, that means certain event. Second one is set containing only H. Third one is set containing only T. And fourth one is phi. Actually, here you have to include the set notation. Set containing H. Set notation is required here. Bracket is required. Here set containing T. Because subset of any set means we use the set notation. For S, no need to give any set notation because it is understood, full set. And phi also there is no need of set notation, but here it is required, set containing H and set containing T. So since there are two elements here, number of events equal to 2 raised to 2, that means 4. Second example, now consider the experiment of tossing a coin twice. You are tossing one coin twice. So which are the possible outcomes? You may get head in first toss and head in second toss again. So we usually denote it as HH. This is first toss outcome and this is second toss outcome, HH. Similarly, head in first toss and tail in second toss, tail in first toss and head in second toss, tail in second toss and tail in first toss and tail in second toss. So all possibilities I have listed here, you get 4 possibilities. So for a small sample space like this, one can readily list the possible events. How many events are possible? 4 means 2 raised to 2n, 2 raised to 4, 2 raised to 2n in the case of n elements. So here 2 raised to 4, that means 16 possible events are there. Out of these, some events I have listed here, just check it. One event is set containing only single element H, HH. Another event is set containing only HT. Third event is set containing only TH. Fourth event is set containing only TT. Then fifth event is set containing HH and HT. Actually this should be HH, correct this, HH and HT. There is no event containing single element H, HH and HT. Like this you can write the events. Okay, so events are nothing but subsets of the sample space. Remember this. Just for your understanding, I am giving you 2 more examples here. If you toss a coin thrice, then what you can get, these are the possible outcomes. 8 possibilities. TTT, TTH, THT, HTT, THH, HTH, HHT and HHH. So there are 8 outcomes in the sample space. So how many events are possible? 2 raised to, if you are having n outcomes, 2 raised to n. So 2 raised to 8 means you get a large number. There are so many events possible. So calculate 2 raised to 8. And here I have given some events out of them. I have given 3 such events. Set containing only HHH is one event. Set containing 3 elements is another event. Set containing these 2 elements is a third event. So these are some of the events. So remember, when you toss a coin, there are 8 possible outcomes in the sample space. When you toss a die, 6-faced die, okay, you might have observed what will be a 6-faced die, how it looks. Okay, this is a 6-faced die. I have given the diagram here. And when you toss this, which are the possible faces or possible outcomes? You may get only this face containing single dot. You may get face containing 2 dots. So usually while listing them, we list them as sample space S equal to set containing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is taken as 1, outcome 1. This is taken as outcome 2. And this is taken as outcome 6. Some events are, if you write the events of this, how many events are possible? 2 to the power 6 events are possible. Some events are A equal to event of getting an odd face. So if you define event as getting an odd face, then 1, 3, 5, it is an event, a subset of this. If you take B equal to event of getting only 6, then set containing only 6 is an event. Like this, there are totally 2 to the power 6 events. Now, what is meant by equally likely events or equiprobable events? When you have two or more events, we say that they are equally likely if they have equal chance of occurrence. There is no discrimination, equal chance of occurrence. For example, when you toss a coin, getting head and getting tail are having equal chances. Okay, so equally likely events are such that none of them has greater chance of occurrence than others. In other words, we use this condition for the equally likely events. So remember, two events are said to be equally likely if they have equal chance of occurrence. So one example I have given here, very simple example and known example to you. When you toss a coin, getting head and getting tail, they are equally likely. You have equal chances for both. When you toss a die, okay, if you define the events like this, these three events are equally likely. So in this event also you have 3 outcomes out of 6, total 6. And here also you have 3 outcomes out of 6. Here also you have 3 outcomes out of total 6. So all the 3 events are having equal chance of occurrence. So these are equally likely events. What is meant by mutually exclusive events or disjoint events? Two or more events are mutually exclusive if only one of them can occur at a time. Meaning is both events cannot occur together. Okay, both events cannot occur together. In other words, mathematically, their intersection, if you can list the elements of both events, their intersection is a null set. They do not have any common element. So in the example of tossing a coin, outcomes head and tail are mutually exclusive because when the coin is tossed once, the result cannot be head as well as tail. Both results cannot occur. Either you will get only head or only tail. So these two are mutually exclusive events. Example 2, when you toss a die, 6-faced die, the events A equal to 2, 4, 6 and events B equal to set containing 3, 5 and events C equal to set containing 1. All are mutually exclusive. Okay, you can observe they do not have any common elements. So mutually exclusive events. Remember, both events cannot occur together. Now, what is the definition of a probability? You already studied this, just recall it. Mathematical definition of probability. If outcome of a trial consists n exhaustive, mutually exclusive, equally possible cases, out of which m of them are favorable cases to an event E, then probability of happening of the event E denoted by P of E is defined as m by n. Remember, always if there are n exhaustive means it includes all possible outcomes, total number of outcomes, n exhaustive outcomes, and mutually exclusive, they do not share any common element, and equally possible cases. Out of these cases, m are favorable to the occurrence of some event E. In that case, this ratio m by n gives you the probability of the event E. So usually we write it as number of favorable cases divided by number of total possible cases. Answer is m by n. It is actually percentage. We also call it as chance. Percentage or chance. Now another type of definition for probability is axiomatic definition of probability. We use 3 axioms for the definition. The first axiom states that for any event A, probability is always greater than or equal to 0. That means P of A cannot be negative. Negative probability does not make any sense. And second axiom under this definition is, if S is the sample space for a given experiment, then P of S is always equal to 1. So first axiom is probability of A is greater than or equal to 0. Second axiom, probability of all elements of the sample space P of S is equal to 1. And third axiom states that if there is no common element between the events, that means mutually exclusive. If A intersection B is null set, then probability of A union B is just given by probability of A plus probability of B. So if you have null set, intersection is null set, in that case probability of union is equal to sum of the probabilities. These three are the axioms of probability. And in other cases, if your A intersection B is not null set, in that case we use a theorem called addition theorem. For any sets A and B not necessarily mutually exclusive, P of A union B equal to P of A plus P of B minus P of A intersection B. This is called as addition theorem of probability. And the same theorem for three events is given by P of A union B union C equal to P of A plus P of B plus P of C. That means we write plus sign with the individual probabilities with the single event minus probabilities of two sets taken at a time, P of A intersection B minus P of A intersection C minus P of B intersection C. Then again plus sign with the probability of all the three events taken at a time, P of A intersection B intersection C. Okay, this continues. You can even write for 4 events, for 5 events, etc. But same idea continues. So remember, probability of A union B is given by P of A plus P of B minus P of A intersection B. This is called as addition theorem of probability. Now conditional probability, we use the notation P of A such that B. This vertical line is called as such that or given that. P of A given that B. Probability of an event A occurring when it is known that some other event B has already occurred. Then it is called as a conditional probability of A given that B. And we use this notation. So how to read this? P of A given that B. That means this is already occurred. B is already occurred. And it is given by P of A given that B equal to P of A intersection B divided by P of B. So we take intersection of both events. Probability of that intersection comes in the numerator and probability of only this condition comes in the denominator. And you can use this formula only if this denominator is greater than 0. Under axiomatic definition you have seen that probability of any event is greater than or equal to 0. But you can use this definition only if it is greater than 0. If this probability of B is equal to 0, then your conditional probability is not defined. There is no meaning for your conditional probability. So only with this condition, denominator is not equal to 0. That means greater than 0. Anyway, it cannot have negative values. Similarly, you can define conditional probability of B given that A. You can interchange the positions of A and B. If it is B given that A, then here it is P of B intersection A. It is same numerator. But denominator in that case you get P of A condition. Okay. Now the same formula can be written in another form. If you shift this P of B to other side, you get P of B into P of A given that B is equal to P of A intersection B. So it is written here. P of A intersection B equal to P of B into P of A given that B. Or if you write the probability of B given that A formula, from that if you rewrite the result, you get this result. P of A into P of B given that A is equal to P of A intersection B. So this is called as the probability of the intersection. We also call it as joint probability, A and B together. Joint probability is given by product of two probabilities. Now when you say that two events are independent, two events are said to be independent, either we use only the word independent or sometimes we also use the word statistically independent. Two events are said to be independent if probability of occurrence of one event does not change the probability of occurrence of the other event. Does not change, or you can say does not affect. In that case, actually even if the event B has occurred, after the occurrence of B, A occurs, but it does not affect the occurrence of A. So actually condition is not important. P of A given that B is same as P of A in this case. So independent events means your condition is not important. So if P of A given that B is equal to P of A, in that case P of B given that A can be simply written as P of B. This condition is not important in the case of independent events. And what about your previous formula, joint probability formula? When there is no condition, we just write this as P of A into P of B. Here also P of B into P of A. So remember, in the case of independent events, P of A intersection B is just product of probabilities. This can be extended to more than two mutually independent events. You can also write if A, B, C are independent, P of A intersection B intersection is equal to P of A into P of B into P of C. You can write. Okay. So remember all these conditions and definitions. Your actual syllabus starts from here. The topic, random variable. Already you studied these topics under statistics, so I think you will understand easily. Once again I am explaining you. A random variable is a rule which assigns a numerical value to each and every outcome of the experiment, or you can say each and every outcome of the sample space. In other words, it is a function from sample space S to the set of real numbers. So we denote it by capital X. Usually our notation for a function means F, but here we use, for random variables, we use the notation capital X, capital Y, etc. So this capital X is a function from sample space to set of real numbers. Now one example, when you toss a coin once, if you assign 1 to the outcome head, we are assigning a real number to each outcome according to the definition of random variable. So if you assign 1 to the outcome head and 0 to the outcome tail, then in other words you can define like this: let X equal to number of heads. Clearly for the outcome H, number of heads will be 1, value of X will be 1, and for the outcome tail T, number of heads is 0. So X of H is 1, function value for the outcome H is 1, and function value for the outcome T is 0. So which are the possible values of X? You can list in this form. We call it as range of X. Range of X is set containing 0, 1. So remember the definition of random variable. It is a function from sample space to set of real numbers, and all values of the random variables are real numbers, constants. So another example, previous example was tossing a coin once. Now I am taking an example of tossing a coin thrice. Okay, or tossing 3 coins together. Tossing 1 coin 3 times, or tossing 3 coins together. So what is the sample space here? List all possible outcomes. HHH, HHT, HTH, HTT, THH, THT, TTH and TTT. You can write these in any order. Order is not important when you write elements of a set. So write all 8 outcomes. Now define the random variable X as the number of heads. So clearly for this outcome X value is 3, number of heads is 3. For this outcome X value is 2. For this outcome X value is 2. For this outcome X value is 2. For this outcome X value is 1. So continue like this, write all values of X, and for the last outcome TTT which you have written here, X value is 0. X of TTT is 0. So which are the values taken by X? We can call it as image set or range. Range of X is equal to set containing, you can observe it takes 0 value, it takes 1, it takes 2 and it takes 3. So possible values of X are 0, 1, 2, 3. Now what is a discrete random variable? A discrete random variable is a random variable X whose possible values can be listed as a finite set. So sometimes it may be a finite set or countably infinite set of values. But anyway, it can be listed. For example, if you are listing all integers, set of all integers, you can list them as set x equal to 0, 1, 2, 3, etc. Set of all positive integers if you consider. Then set x equal to 0, 1, 2, 3, etc. It is not actually finite. Okay, you can continue till infinity. But you can list them in a particular order. So countably infinite means you can list them. So this is discrete random variable means the values of x can be listed. Remember it. Example, when you toss a coin twice, x equal to number of heads. Then what are the values of x? You can list them. 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2. Correct? You can list them. So clearly x is a discrete random variable. Other examples of discrete random variable are size of a family. So number of members in a family, size of a family, you can list them. Number of accidents on a road, number of customers in a bank, number of cars manufactured by the company, number of transactions in a bank per day, all these can be listed. So these are some other examples for discrete random variable. Now what is a continuous random variable? A random variable x which makes all possible values in a given interval is called a continuous random variable. You cannot list the values taken by x here. It takes all possible values in a given interval. So as an example, here x takes all values in an interval 0, 1. If you consider this interval, clearly there are many real numbers in between 0 and 1. You cannot list them in a particular order. Some of you may write the values in between 0 and 1. You have 0.5, you have 0.25, you have 0.0001. You may give some values, but you cannot list all values in this interval. All are real numbers. Infinitely many real numbers are there in between these two. So clearly you cannot list them. So x is a continuous random variable. Some other examples for continuous random variable are temperature at a location. You may not list in a particular order. It increases and decreases or takes values in between them, but you cannot write in a particular order. The lifetime of electronic component, the reaction temperature at a chemical laboratory, current in a semiconductor diode, etc. These are some examples for continuous random variable. Remember, I have given it as a note here. Remember that discrete random variables can take only countable number of possible values. On the other hand, a continuous random variable takes the values in the form of an interval, all values. So remember this. We define a term called probability mass function. Now if x is a discrete random variable defined on the sample space S, and let values of x are x1, x2, x3, etc. xn. Then the function p of xi, that means probability that the random variable x takes the value xi. Xi means I may be any value from 1 to n. Here I have given the values x1, x2, etc. up to xn. So probability of any value of xi that assigns a probability to each possible value of the random variable is said to be a probability mass function. In short, we call it as PMF if it satisfies the following two properties. So which are the properties? The first property, P of xi greater than or equal to 0. That means it cannot be negative, non-negativity property. Remember the name of the property. P of xi greater than or equal to 0 for all xi belongs to your random variable capital X. Similarly, second property is called as normality property. Summation I equal to 1 to infinity P of xi is equal to 1. Actually, if your values of x are x1 to xn, if upper limit is known n, then you can write this as summation I equal to 1 to n. Otherwise, in general, we use this notation. Summation I equal to 1 to infinity. Okay. So if both conditions are satisfied, then only we say that x is a discrete random variable. So remember this. How to find the probability of the value of the random variable x, taking a value in between a and b. In the closed interval a b means both a and b are included. So this is the method. We take summation from a to b of p of x values. A and b are also included here. But if they give you a less than x less than or equal to b, if a less than x is given, then a is not included. Okay. Here both a and b are included because of the closed interval. So remember, there is difference between less than and less than or equal to in the case of discrete random variable. And in some textbooks, sometimes probability mass function is also called as probability density function. So remember, probability mass function we use for the discrete random variable. Here I have given one example for you to understand the conditions of probability mass function. Consider the experiment of tossing 3 coins. So what you get? We get these 8 outcomes in the sample space, yes. And if you define x equal to number of heads, then which are the possible values of x? I have listed here x equal to number of heads. I have written the possible values of x 0, 1, 2, 3. And how many times this number occurs? X equal to 0 occurs how many times? X equal to 0 occurs only for this outcome TTT. So only once. X equal to 1 occurs how many times? X equal to 1 means number of heads equal to 1. How many times it occurs? Here number of heads is 1. And for this outcome number of heads is 1. For this outcome also number of heads is 1. So how many times number of heads equal to 1 occurs? 3 times. Similarly, x equal to 2. Number of heads equal to 2. How many times it occurs? Check it. It is 3. And x equal to 3. How many times you get number of heads equal to 3? That means only for HHH. Only 1. Okay. Now from this, these are actually favorable outcomes. Favorable cases. Once again recall the definition of your probability. What is the classical definition of probability? Probability of any event A equal to m by n, where m is favorable cases and n is total cases. So these are actually favorable cases. So what is the corresponding probability for x equal to 0? What is the probability? 1 by 8. Favorable case is 1 out of total 8 cases. So it is 1 by 8. For probability of x equal to 1, favorable cases are 3. So it is 3 by 8. For x equal to 2, you get 3 by 8. For x equal to 3, you get 1 by 8. Okay. And you can observe it is a very interesting property, the property of PMF. Clearly, you can see that these probabilities are greater than or equal to 0. Your first condition, non-negativity condition. Remember, this is the first condition, non-negativity condition. And what is the second condition? Sum of all probabilities equal to 1. Check it. Add all these answers which you obtained here. 1 by 8 plus 3 by 8 plus 3 by 8 plus 1 by 8. What is the answer? You get 1. So clearly, this P of x gives the PMF, probability mass function. So remember, probability mass function we define for discrete random variable. Similarly, we use a term called probability density function. Short form is PDF. If x is a continuous random variable, then a function f of x defined for all values of x is said to be a probability density function PDF if it satisfies the following properties. What is the first property? Non-negativity condition. All f of x values are greater than or equal to 0 for every value of x. And integration minus infinity to infinity, f of x dx is equal to 1. That means actually this gives you area under the curve from minus infinity to infinity. That answer is 1. So remember the difference. First condition is same for both discrete and continuous case, but second condition, in the case of discrete random variable we use summation here, and here in the case of continuous random variable we use integration. Now if any other probability is asked, probability that x takes the value in the interval a comma b, Then we use integration from a to b. So p of a less than or equal to x less than or equal to b means integration from a to b f of x dx. We use another term called the cumulative distribution function or cumulative density function. The short form is CDF. So what is the definition of CDF? CDF of a random variable x is given by this capital F of x equal to probability of the random variable x is less than or equal to x. So if your capital X is a discrete random variable with the corresponding PMF given by P of x, in that case this cumulative density function is given by summation minus infinity to x P of x. And if x is a continuous random variable with the corresponding PDF f of x, then capital F of x, the CDF is given by minus infinity to infinity f of x dx. Remember, don't worry about the notation. Sometimes for the PMF they may give you f of x notation. Sometimes for PDF they may give you p of x notation. Okay, you should check only whether x is a continuous random variable or discrete random variable. Okay, don't worry about the notation. If x is a discrete random variable, use summation, and if x is a continuous random variable, use integration. Just remember this, and usually we use capital F for CDF, continuous cumulative distribution function, and small f for PDF, probability density function. So today we discussed all the theory topics which are required in this module. Okay, starting from the basics of probability theory which you have studied earlier, we defined random variables which are included in your syllabus, random variables topic, and out of random variables, discrete random variables, continuous random variables, and their density functions, probability density function, probability mass function, PDF, and cumulative density function. Okay. So in the next class, in my next session, I will work out some problems so that you can easily understand all the conditions of this PDF and PMF. Okay. Thank you.